All right, this week's Parsha, Parsha Chayei. We are coming off the heels of the Akedah Yitzchak, which leads to Avram Avinu having a revelation that he needs to find a wife for his son Yitzchak, because if he would have actually sacrificed Yitzchak at the Akedah, he would have been left with no living descendants from his wife Sarah. So what he decides to do is to get his trusted servant Eliezer to take an oath to go find Yitzchak a proper mate. Now we know Yitzchak himself can't go for multiple reasons. One is that he is not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael because of the Korban Tamim, and so he sends Eliezer in his stead. Now Eliezer really doesn't know what to look for 100%. He just knows that it should kind of be from Avram's family, but that's kind of terse. I mean, I don't know what kind of woman Yitzchak's looking for. So what he does is that he comes up with a condition, and he wants to get a sign from the divine. And his sign is that the first woman to give me and my camels water at the well should be the wife for Yitzchak. The Mamlues, the Al Shech HaKadosh, ask why this type of sign. I mean, could have made up some other sign, I guess. So the idea is that Eliezer chapped because he lived amongst Abraham and Sarah and Yitzchak, and he saw that they were people that exceeded in Gemilas Hasadim, especially in Chachas Orchem, and meaning being nice to people and hosting people as guests. We know that Avram planted an Eshel, which is a code name for Achil, Ashti, and Levia, which is for eating, for feeding people, for giving people stuff to drink, and for escorting people. So he chose a test specifically in the realm of Chesed, because he figured out that whoever would be for Avram and Yitzchak and would be fit in with the family has to have those qualities too. And we see that Rivka actually ended up hitting it right out of the park, right? She gives food, she gives drink, and she gives a place to stay, and she accompanies them. Now, the Zera Shimshon, building on this idea, asks specifically about the Tanai. And if you look at the Tanai, the condition that was made, it seems that it's very intrinsic to this condition, that there be along with it not just the giving water to Eliezer. There's also the idea of having to give waters to the camel. Now, why is that specifically intrinsic to what Eliezer says? He could have just left it at giving water to him. Why does he have to throw in this thing about the camels? So give some background information. The Zera Shimshon quotes the Gemara in Chulin that talks about Pinchas ben Yair. Pinchas ben Yair one time had his donkey at like an inn, and one of the innkeepers tried to feed it barley, and the donkey would not eat the barley. So the innkeeper, he started refining it and purifying it and sifting it, and still, because he thought that the donkey wasn't eating it because maybe it didn't taste good, the donkey still wouldn't eat it. And Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair asked them, well, did you tithe the barley? To which the owners responded in the negative. And he says, so you want to feed my donkey untithed produce, especially when my donkey's on the way to helping me to do mitzvah? So meaning that this encapsulates the Gemara in Chulin saying that Hashem doesn't even allow takalas, and there's really not a great English word to translate that to, I guess maybe stumblings. He doesn't even let stumblings happen to the animals of the tzaddikim. Kol shekain, even more so, he doesn't even let those types of things happen to the tzaddikim themselves. Like, it's very rare that or almost never, that a tzaddik, even by accident, would end up eating something treif. He doesn't even allow their animals, for example, to eat something treif. And the Zera Shimshon builds on this by saying that we know that Avram Avinu's camels, they weren't muzzled. They didn't need to be muzzled. They, on purpose, and this is according to at least one opinion in the Medrash, they on themselves, being around Avram Avinu, somebody who's got so much integrity and so much honesty, we impact the environment around us, right? So when animals start acting strange in the world, it's an offshoot of, so to speak, human beings. So Avram Avinu was such an honest person, and that it rubbed off onto his surroundings around him, that his camels didn't even have to be muzzled, and they never ate from anybody else's stuff. And who would know this better than Eliezer? Eliezer was the head of his household, and he's literally with the camels on a trip. And it's unusual that a camel, that you're not having to veer it off sometimes a little bit off the path to make sure it doesn't eat something that's not belonging to the owner of the camel. That's unusual, but he never had to do that. So he realized that himself. And so what happens over here is that there's many things that happen. So, for example, the Medrash brings down that Avram Avinu, that Eliezer saw when Rivka was coming to the well, that the water was coming up to her. Well, shouldn't that have been a sign that she was somebody special and somebody worth marrying right then and there? You don't even have to do the whole fill up my cup. And Ramosha Feinstein says no, because miracles can happen even to people who don't deserve them in terms of their Rishaim, like Nebuchadnezzar. So a miracle is not a proof of character per se. Okay, well, what about that she gave me water? Just me. Forget about the camels. What about just me? So, according to the Zera Shimshon, Eliezer wasn't willing to rely just on that. You know, it's technically possible that somebody who's not like a super high level might end up giving somebody water to drink. So what he decided to rely on was the camels. Because who's to say that the water from the well that Rivka is drawing, she actually has reshush, she actually has permission to draw from that well. Perhaps the water in that well, she's using it and it's like stolen, like she didn't have money, she never paid the rent to use that well. How would Eliezer know such a thing? So granted, she's doing a nice deed by giving me water, but how am I going to know that she's actually not a thief? So what he does is he makes a contingent on the camels, because he says that just like the donkeys of Reb Pinchas ben Yair, that they wouldn't eat from something that hadn't been tithed. Kol shekein la'Avram Avinu. So meaning that, of course, Avram Avinu's camels that are being sent right now, if Rivka might have done a good deed, but she was stealing from the well, let's say she was stealing from the well, then Eliezer would have been able to discern this by the camel's refusal to drink. That's why the pasuk makes it sound like it's all contingent on the camels, because meaning, why couldn't it have been like this? Why couldn't it have been that Eliezer got the water for himself, and then he sees Rivka going to get the water to give to the camels? Let it just be like that, and the camels don't even drink. She says, oh, she's about to give water to the camels. Okay, stop. You don't even have to give water to the camel. I see you're going to, if it's just about pure chesed and that she has just chesed on animals also, well, it doesn't matter whether the camels actually drink. It would just matter that her intention is to give it to the animals, right? So you could have just stopped her there and said, oh, no, don't worry about the camels. I see you were about to give them the drink. I know you're super chesed lady. Here, put the ring on your finger. No, he actually wants the camels to drink. This is what the verse says. Vayhi ka'asher kalu. Only when they finished drinking. Kalu agamalim lishtos. Vayhi kacha ha'ish nezim hazahav. And meaning, even maybe it was after they drank everything. I don't know how many times she went in there to gather. Maybe she only had permission to go one time up, okay? And so, yeah, they would drink that one, but she went 2 or 3 times, and maybe those ones were stolen. No, he wanted to make sure they drank everything so that he would know that there was not one little pint or something like that, or fluid ounce of stolen liquid, and that would testify to her integrity. And that's, the verse makes it sound like it's contingent not on him drinking, and not on just her going to give to the camels. It's on the camels drinking everything, and that was his way, because the camels are not Baalei Bechira. They are influenced by the people around them. So for sure he knew that was a sign clear that she was a tzaddikus.